This video is made possible by Second Call Defense. Second Call Defense provides immediate, upfront legal protection for a member who is forced to use any legal weapon for self-defense. So protect yourself today with Second Call Defense. I did. You'll find the link in the description. Hi, I'm Joel Persinger. I'm the Gun Guy. Thank you very much for all of your support of GunGuyTV. I'm very grateful that you do that. I've got a great interview for you with Maj Toure from Black Guns Matter. It is a no-holds-barred, hold-nothing-back, in-your-face interview, and I loved it. He was great. I hope he comes back on the show again. Before we get to that, I want to make sure that you follow me on these other locations because once in a while YouTube gets his knickers in a knot and decides to delete something. You might also check out the GunGuyTV Firearms podcast. It's on your favorite podcast player. And my social media is getting smaller and smaller by the day because I find that these platforms, either I have no following or very little following, makes no sense to stay. So you might see that these things shrink a little bit as we go. Lastly, if you'd like to support the channel, you're welcome to do that. You can do that by joining GunGuyTV Crew. Just go to GunGuyTVCrew.com or you'll find us on Locals and also on Patreon, wherever you like. All right, let's go talk to Maj. Maj, thank you very much for joining me on the show. I realize you got a busy schedule and things are a little crazy and you're extremely popular. That's a good thing. Thanks for taking some time. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it.
Anytime. You're always welcome. Hey, listen, I wanted to talk with you about a few things because I've seen some interviews that you've done and a few things impressed me. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to call you a young man because I'm an old man. I was born in the 50s. I'm an old guy. And one of the things I learned as a kid and was taught as a kid is that we should be able to, that discussion is good, that debate is good, that disagreement is good, and we should be able to disagree without being disagreeable. And if we can have those kind of conversations, then we can learn from each other, we can grow, and we can, and sometimes we can just say, no, we disagree, and we can shake hands and walk away.
Right.
And I've been saying for a long time that our society seems to have lost that. And I don't know where the heck that went. But I've heard you talk about that. And so one of the things I'd like to see happen, and I would love to see happen, is that if we can find commonality somewhere, maybe we can find it in gun ownership. Maybe we can find it in the fact that each one of us has a life we want to defend and protect. Maybe we can come together instead of being so split apart. I've heard you talk about that. Yeah. And I'd love to know what your thoughts are.
I think that's important. I think it's a skill that takes developing. I think that when you are inherently passionate about a thing, if you don't lead with empathy, we have three stages of what we do with the solutionary approach. We deal first with empathy. Secondly, we deal with the facts once we've established empathy with the person that we're discussing anything with. And then third, we get to a solution. Maybe that can be together or not. But I think what happens a lot of times is people are very passionate and that passion for the thing gets in the way. And I think it's also interesting that so many people say things like, this is a new phrase, let's say over the last few years, facts don't care about your feelings. Facts don't care about your feelings. And that's like partially true, but it's a dumb statement. It doesn't actually advance a cause. It's just kind of like I'm right and you're wrong. And that's it. It does not foster a better understanding. I just had this weekend, I went through one of the guys that I think he did a great documentary. The guy's name is Matt. He did a great documentary called What is a Woman? And I thought it was great. But I thought his take on bringing up, a lot of conservatives do this. They'll bring up conversations because extreme leftists will say something extreme. And then conservatives will go just as extreme, ignoring the group of people in the middle that we should be connecting with, right? Or saying something that will actually repulse. And in this instance, it was a tweet about slavery. Basically, in essence, the world has always had slavery, blah, blah, blah. It has a very all lives matter-ish feeling to it. When it comes in relation to someone else's thing, there's a lack of empathy and understanding. And that lack of empathy and understanding, sometimes because you just want to be, well, this is the facts. You burn a bridge or deny an opportunity to reach people that we could actually reach because we haven't established a rapport and we're saying facts which are cold-hearted. It is not, that process is not strategic at all.
Okay, so I'm going to be the ignorant guy. Can I be the ignorant guy? Because I am. I have said, so I'm just going to throw it out there. I have said all lives matter, all lives matter. And that's blown up in my face. And you just mentioned that. So I want you to help me, help me understand why that statement is ignorant and why that has blown up in my face.
So I smoke cigars. If I'm not very careful, if I smoke too many cigars, I'll probably get, the potential for lung cancer is there, right? Now, let's say if I had a friend or a family member or myself that got lung cancer and it was really bad and we were doing some sort of awareness rally around lung cancer and people are there that died, people who had family members that died are there to just support and bring some attention and maybe fundraise or whatever. And in the middle of doing that, somebody else shows up and says, well, breast cancer is important too. All cancers matter. It would be duh. We do know that all cancers matter, but this specific one is the one that we're trying to generate some resources for the people that are impacted by this lung cancer. So to just show up and go, nah, breast cancer is more important. All throat cancer is important too. It becomes a very reductive as well as adversarial statement. It's in relation to something that someone said, hey, my granny just is struggling or my grandpa is struggling with lung cancer. And I just want to bring some more awareness. Anybody else that's going through this as well. We kind of want to commune together and communicate and all of that. And then here somebody comes talking about, well, throat cancers matter too. Duh, we know that. That is
how much of that. Okay, so I'm going to blow it up again. Right, we're going to blow some stuff up here because I think it's positive to do. All right.
Yeah. How
much of that offense is on the part of the sender of that message, and how much of it is on the part of the receiver? Because the message "all lives matter," for example, is often, at least in my case, was not sent to diminish the problem. It was sent because the intent behind it was to acknowledge the problem, but also deal with what I perceive to be a diminishing of the fact that white lives matter, Latino lives matter, Filipino lives matter, Asian lives matter. Does that make sense? So how much of it is on my part? Maybe a lot. And I'll use me as an example, so you can pick on me. That's fine. And how much of it is on the receiver's end when I make such a statement that causes that tension? So
it's the vast majority of that is the insensitive conversation or approach that falls on the person saying it because you're not socially aware. So, for example, if my Jewish friends are having a Holocaust Remembrance Day, and in the middle of that, I go, well, African Americans had the transatlantic slave trade. All Holocausts matter.
Okay, I see where you're going. Right.
Why would I pick that time?
Right.
And if all lives matter, then all lives matter should have been being created and said. Why does it have to ride on the piggyback of when people are talking about this community, this very specific community issue, this very specific cancer area, right? If for some reason nobody thought to say all lives matter before Black Lives Matter. Now, don't get me wrong. I want to be clear here. I completely disagree with the corporation that is and their tactics and the approach of Black Lives Matter Incorporated. I want to be clear about that. But the phrase, because we're having this discussion about empathy and the approach and dialogue and spreading our values and winning an argument of hearts and minds. The facts have nothing to do with getting someone to understand that you care about their position. And if you put the fact first, it's cold and you lose the potential for dialogue and that understanding. And that's where we are right now. Instead of me saying, like when people say blue lives matter, which again is another one that's in relation to, it's a all cancers matter type of vibe. If I said, well, police officers aren't murdered anywhere near American citizens are murdered annually. So that one isn't as important. If some of my friends that have fathers, mothers, people that have been shot at or killed in law enforcement to that person where we're trying to make a headway. That person, it's that their reality is someone that they love dearly was murdered by a bad guy, right? And here I come talking about, well, black men or white men die more than just police officers. So why is that the argument? Why can't we say all deaths matter? It comes off very disingenuous in relation to, and it does not foster a feeling that whichever that group says, you understand where I'm coming from, even if it may not be your scenario. And I don't feel if there's an empathy or an understanding, even if we get to the point of disagreement on certain tactics or strategies, if I don't genuinely understand that you are coming to me from a place of understanding and civil dialogue, because we know that we have rapport, good friends that know that they care about each other can argue about anything and still go get a drink because there's a rapport there. But if you lead in and come in hot and you don't have any rapport built with this person or this group, it comes off very cynical. So we go to facts, right. Don't care about your feelings. And
yeah, I totally get it. And I'm sorry to interrupt you. I apologize, brother. I totally get it. I've been married a long time. One of the things my wife taught me, I've been married so long, I just do what I'm told. Okay. Happy wife, happy life, right? One of the things my wife helped beat into my head over the years is that I needed to validate what she was saying, validate what she was feeling before I started talking about the facts of the issue. And I think this is somewhat similar as the message you're sharing with me, is that if I'm not at least validating that this issue is real, I'm not validating that within this community, this is a serious problem, and I'm just lumping it in with everything else, and I'm failing miserably. Am I getting this right?
You're failing in the sense of developing. Now, the fact of the matter is, no, black men being murdered is not the number one priority in the community. That's not the leading cause of death. I want to be clear about that. However, in establishing inroads to get that person to understand, you do fail miserably at that. You don't fail at sharing information. You go, well, the black community dies mostly from hypertension or high blood pressure or whatever. You can say that in there, and that's true, but it does not help in the art of dialogue and the art of conversation. And the reason why this is important and why we're in this space where everybody's retreating to their corners and just coming out to fight each other and then retreating back to their corners and there's no actual dialogue is because instead of leading with facts and trying to apply a solution, more people should really try to understand. This does not mean pander. This doesn't mean pander and just go along with whatever said. If I say, hey, I'm a libertarian that understands socially conservative values. I understand that, right? I'm a freedom person, but I understand that somebody may want to be fiscally, socially, whatever, conservative. If someone says, hey, I want to get a license to carry. Now, I know the fact is a license to carry is an infringement. It is. The Second Amendment is clear. It doesn't say the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed once you got a license to carry. That's not what it says. I know that it's an infringement, but I also know that it's infinitely more difficult for a person without a license to carry to articulate in a place to a law enforcement officer that does not have that same level of understanding. It's infinitely more easy or smooth for that person to say, I'm licensed to carry and just give them an ID. That police officer has a different understanding. You're rolling the dice to understand if that police officer really understands the Second Amendment and he isn't going to try to arrest you for not having a license to carry. So I get it. Now, if someone wants to get a license to carry, I explain that to them. And then we still help them at Black Guns Matter. We do that work. And then we say, this process that you're going through shouldn't even be here. There's over 25, I think it's 26 now, constitutional carry states in America, which means you can buy a firearm and then just put it on your body, open carry or not, whichever way you want. That's what it's supposed to be. The state that you're in is now asking that you have a license to carry. If you want to get one, we'll help you get one. But I also want you to be politically active to overturn that so no one else has to do that process anymore. That's a fuller, contextual, layered conversation. If I just say, I'm not going to help you get a license to carry because it's an infringement and I'm helping infringements, that's not me understanding that person's reservation or their lack of the ability to articulate that to a police officer. That's not me being empathetic for their space. right? For their thought process.
Yeah.
And when we hear people like on the more right leaning say these things and don't approach it that way, and then we also wonder why people on the right are like, well, why is the urban demographic consistently voting Democrat? And that's bad for the nation. The policies have been horrible. Well, because Democrats, even with their lies, are there to be empathetic. Even if they're lying, they're better at PR. We should be winning because we actually have facts and data on, like, without skewering it, we have it on our side. But we fail at having a civil and respectable dialogue leading in with empathy because we think that because the facts are there, that should be the end of it. The reality is, my attorney told me this years ago. The truth in a criminal case doesn't always matter as much as who can tell their story better as an attorney.
Yeah.
You know, I'm someone that has been falsely accused of things, and the rumor stays around longer than the fact of the matter. So this is all tied into our failure in approaching and engaging urban demographics to get them on our side by winning the hearts and minds. That lack of understanding of that and just saying, well, I'm right. You don't get anything for being right. Democrats have historically not been right, but they've dominated in this area. At a certain point, when do we say, hey, maybe our approach should be refined and restructured? And this is
Maj, this is super helpful. And I'm sorry, I'm interrupting you. Right. I apologize, but I got to ask a question once in a while, or it's not my show. Right. No, this is super helpful because, you know, I'm a Christian. And so one of the things that I've learned through my life is that there's a choice of being right or being righteous. Mm-hmm. And if I'm trying to be right all the time, I'm just trying to make myself something that I'm not. And so the goal here would be to be righteous, not right, in my vernacular. I realize that's probably not the vernacular of everyone. It's interesting you mentioned constitutional carry because my wife and I are residents of two states. We're residents of California. We live in San Diego County, California. We also have a very small, everybody thinks I'm rich when I say this, but it's not true. We have a small ranch in the White Mountains of Arizona. Mm-hmm. And so when I'm in Arizona, the culture is completely different. Arizona's got a great laws for the Second Amendment. The culture is a very different place. In the county in which we live there is a very large population of Navajo, because the Navajo reservation is right there, not far from our ranch, actually. And everybody has a gun. So when the cop pulls you over in Arizona, he asks you the same standard questions, your driver's license, insurance, like that. And do you have a gun? And the only reason they ask is, do you have a gun in the car, is because they might get somebody from out of state. Otherwise, the question would be, where do you keep your gun in your car? Right. Because in Arizona, if you find somebody that doesn't have a gun in their car, it's because they got California plates. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So firearms ownership is normal.
Right.
It's just normal. I mean, nobody bats an eye. It's so normal that one time my business partner and I stopped because we were doing some training with the Maricopa County Sheriff's Department. We stopped at a little shopping supermarket to get some drinks because we were going to drive back here. And it was hot. And the gal in front of me goes to pay her bill. Mm-hmm. Had all her groceries stacked up. And she starts she's looking for her wallet in her purse. So she pulls out her checkbook and her compact and her keys and her gun. And, oh, there's my wallet. And then she gets her credit card out and she pays. Now her gun is sitting right there. The clerk doesn't bat an eye. Nobody in line cares because guns are normal. Mm-hmm. Now you come back to California, it's like you've left the United States and gone into the People's Socialist Republic of California, where guns are not normal.
Right.
How do we get to the point where gun ownership, gun carry is normalized in areas where it isn't, and particularly in the cities in which crime is a big deal? Because I keep hearing this. This is what I hear all the time. Okay, and I want you to help me out here because I got you here to help me out. All right. I keep hearing this. Well, we got to have more gun control in this city because there's more crime. And I'm thinking to myself, no. You need to let the honest people arm themselves, and that will deal with the crime in the city. But maybe I'm wrong, so help me out.
You're 100% right, and that's how we've been able to be successful at Black Guns Matter. We started our organization with a specific goal in mind. make urban demographics, Black America more specifically, not to isolate or, disrespect any other group. But this is where gun control was targeted. The racist practice of gun control was started to stop Black people in America from having the means to defend themselves. It's a direct contradiction to the Second Amendment. Saying that to say, we got so many people saying you shouldn't go to the areas that are anti-gun. No, and the reason being is because they're not going to be receptive to it. No, you are afraid or lack the programming to communicate with that demographic. Within 3 years and under $300,000 spent, we made Black America the largest new gun buying demographic. And since then, the numbers have increased every single year. How we did that was speaking the language and leading in with empathy. Planet Fitness has an amazing business model. They just say, hey, you might still eat pizza. They have pizza at Planet Fitness. They have Tootsie Rolls. They have snack donuts at certain times. If you still eat this stuff, cool. At least eat it and work out, or work out and then eat it, right? Planet Fitness has an amazing come as you are model. Over time, that person will stop eating a bunch of donuts. They will. They'll see the progress or lack of progress in their workout, and they'll move forward. Now, I know it's a crude example, but the point there is we led into to give an understanding that you as a human of any background have the human right as codified in the Second Amendment of the Bill, of the Bill of Rights, to defend your life. So when guys would say, man, I'm a convicted felon, I can't come to your class, I would say, yes, you can. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. The information is there. And if you was heavy in the streets before, even if you turned your life around, the people that you did wrong don't care that you turned your life around. You better have something to defend your life with. And so this actual Second Amendment approach, not, well, this guy went to jail before. That's statism. That is not what the Second Amendment says. And being empathetic for the fact that this community was not only targeted with gun control, this community was also targeted with the war on drugs. Nixon, it's been very clear. This community was targeted for most non-violent drug possession charges. We have guys doing felony time for weed, and the founding fathers had hemp farms. So that understanding of the demographic and the empathy for someone that is out of jail, pay their debt to society, and saying, hey, you should have the means to defend your life. Actually standing on that and not judging somebody and all of that, because I know you're going to get a gun. Where you lose me is you get that gun and you do the wrong thing with it. That's where you lose me. So empathy and actually going to the community to do the actual work and sticking to what the Second Amendment says. Too many people in the Second Amendment community, they use this phrase called law-abiding gun owners.
No, that's nonsense. I don't use it, and I'll tell you why. Because the laws are unconstitutional. Why are we obeying unconstitutional laws? No, I use honest gun owners, and it doesn't matter. Here's the deal. Here's the deal. When I was growing up, and then you tell me what you use, okay? And again, I'm in my 60s because I was born in the 50s.
Okay.
When I was growing up, a lot of this gun control nonsense didn't exist. Some did, a lot did not. Okay. Yep. And even in California, open carry was legal until Ronald Reagan went batty with the legislature because the police were not doing the work they should have been doing in Oakland, and the Black Panthers needed to defend the neighborhoods, and they didn't like the fact that they showed up at the Capitol with guns, so they took it away. So you talk about gun control being racist. I'm old enough to remember that event. Before that, if you carried a gun or you had a gun in your glove box or you had a gun, whatever, that was entirely normal. The rule was pretty stinking simple.
Yeah.
You got a gun, that's fine. Don't shoot anybody with it that doesn't need to be shot. And if you shoot somebody with it that didn't need to be shot, then you're going to go to jail. How hard is this?
It's very simple.
You set me off. I'm sorry.
we say safe and responsible gun owner. Because are you safe and are you
responsible? Right.
I don't care if you're selling weed and you know that someone may potentially rob you because you're selling weed and you have that firearm to protect yourself. I do not care. I don't care. It does not. Listen, you know what game you're in.
Yeah.
in any game, you can be robbed taking money from your job. You know, I used to work at Foot Locker. When you do deposits, you're taking all of the money for the day from the store to the bank. That's the same thing. I would have a firearm to protect anyone trying to harm me as I did that. Same concept. The problem is we aren't sticking to what not everyone, but a lot of bigger organizations and individuals have this thought process.
You can say we, it's okay, because you'd be right most of the time.
It doesn't create a space of we're actually sticking to what the Second Amendment actually is. So for us, and this all ties in together, how we were successful with under $300,000. I'm talking about at certain points in 2018, we were going to 2 cities a week. We just went to the areas that had the most gun control, the most restrictions on the human right to self-defense, the most violent crime. And we engaged the community and say, hey, just because you live in a neighborhood and the killer's right there doesn't mean you cool with the killer. You want to have the means to protect yourself. We led with an understanding that turned into an empathy. You're the person that the government is telling you you're a bad person for having a gun. But I live in a space that the bad guy has a gun that doesn't follow those rules, that y'all are almost you are hamstringing me. For us, it was important to say, let's take that mental block or load off of your back and go, you are fine having a firearm. And by presenting the training that was in alignment with that Second Amendment and doing it in a manner where people didn't feel judged, we were able to translate the concepts of what is the EDC? What is this? Very basic concepts to us, but we understand that this demographic has not been told any of this, none of it. So we went into it like Planet Fitness. Hey, just come as you are, man. We're going to give you the information. I only care that you're safe and responsible. And you come here to learn to be safe and responsible. That empathy should predate any conversation about the facts. And when it doesn't, and that this thought process translates among any discipline, when the fact is put before the empathy, you run the risk of losing the person because there's no connection. So this ideology that a lot of the Second Amendment community is very military, law enforcement, back to blue, that loses the demographic. So whether you're talking about that from having a libertarian or conservative conversation, if you fail to engage that demographic, understanding as a libertarian does that the Black community was targeted on the war on drugs. That was Nixon. He did that on purpose. When you understand that, then you're not looking at somebody that has a nonviolent weed charge or conviction as the end of the world because he's a technically he's a felon. And in doing so, you are able to show the contradictions. And then we get those people to be politically active. When you say all slaveries are exactly the same, not accounting for feudalism, indentured servitude, even if they were exactly the same, when you attempt to say a thing and you have not established a rapport, you minimize, maybe even unintentionally, you minimize someone's family or their lineage or their genealogy's struggle. And it's not okay. It's factually accurate, but it does not help advance the cause and the demographic that we need the most. And that's one of the single-handed biggest failures that we have done. It's messaging. The left kills the right at messaging because they're great at it. I used to go to the NRA annual meetings. I went 3 years in a row.
Oh, that'll give you a headache.
And they never had any hip hop artists.
Yeah, no.
Stupid. Every hip hop artist talks about, positive or negative, talks about guns, gun ownership, whatever, being able to defend themselves. Hip hop is the most free market enterprise form of music I've ever heard. It's all about, we got to get this money. We got to do this. We got to take care of our thing. We got to take care of our people. We got to block ourselves from the haters. Why you don't have a hip hop artist like maybe even Killer Mike, who is pro-gun, at one of these events is stupid. Okay, you can go white guy. Post Malone, he shoots at one of the gun ranges in Atlanta. Why don't you have him there? You have the resources to do it. The PR is horrible. And that lack of understanding and empathy, or just calling them unwinnable districts, that type of foolish rhetoric and just horrible tactics and strategy is why we continue to lose in that fight of hearts and minds. And you need the fight of hearts and minds to get more people to be on your side, because this is a representative government. It's a representative.
This goes beyond, I think this goes beyond guns, and it goes beyond gun rights as well, honestly.
Yeah.
I'm a pasty-faced white guy. I'm actually a pasty-faced Italian guy, but whatever you want to call me. Okay. I do speak 3.5 languages, English, Spanish, enough Italian to get my face slapped and ask for directions, but I don't know what they are when they give them to me. And I speak money. Everybody speaks money, right? Dinero, that's the universal language all around the world. Look, I think can we ever get past the skin color thing? I mean,
yes.
I want to get past. Look, my wife is Mexican and Spanish. Okay. We speak 2 languages in this household. I got a son who's half Filipino. Now he's the largest Filipino in the world because he's 6'6" and 310 pounds. He can pick up this house and walk away with it. His wife is Mexican.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So the church we go to doesn't have a color that's the majority of the color. I mean, it's a very interracial group, and nobody cares. And so nobody sees that. And yet we just seem to go backwards. We just start to make some headway, and then we go backwards again. Help me with that, man. Help me. How do we get there? Because we're not there. We've never been there, but it's got to be a goal that we can work toward at some point.
Absolutely. And this is why I brought up the conversation about those tweets yesterday, or whenever day it was. You get there by empathy. So look, for example, right? I have a book right here. It's called The Color of Law. Okay. And then this book, Richard Rothstein breaks down how our government, the United States government, city, state, and federal, literally segregated America. There were charters that if we give you the money to build this housing complex, you cannot have any Black people in it. That's factual. And it's written by a white Jewish dude, right? Why am I saying this? The quicker that we acknowledge that these things happen and stop trying to minimize other people's, I mean, we're talking about my grandmother's age and maybe like my mother, a little bit over my mother's age. This isn't like 200 years ago. The quicker that we recognize and stop trying to like overcorrect, like extreme leftists go, every white dude is absolutely the problem with everything in the world. And it's like, nah, that's not true. However, there were some systemic things that happened. And then we say, well, America has no systemic issues because some good men and women did great things, 100%. But yes, there was systemic issues. This book is an example of it. When you read a book like this right here, right? Capitalism and Slavery, right? These are provable, undeniable things that corporations and city, state, and federal governments did, and those corporations and charters still exist. Wells Fargo, the train, what's those train guys, Southern North or whatever that train company, I forget the name. But my point is, there were things that targeted a race of people in America. There was an economic advantage from it. Now, that's the truth. That is factual. Then we also as a nation have a very unique space where we can actually attempt to eradicate this fully. But when you minimize it or tell one specific group, you guys got to get over it. Then when you say that and you haven't had a robust conversation about it, it's diminishing. And that diminishing, if let's take Black out of it. Let's take police officer. Let's just switch it to that. Police officers, a lot of times, have a tough job. Okay. There's nothing routine about a traffic stop. They don't know who they're getting. Same as the citizen in the vehicle. They don't know who they're getting. We also have to say the men and women that generally get that job want to do good. They do get caught up in bureaucracy because the brass tells them to do things like writing tickets. That has nothing to do with improving the quality of life or making citizens safe. It does not. It is revenue generation for the state. So we should be able to say this at one point when it's protecting and serving, which they do not have a legal obligation to protect or serve you. They do not. But when those guys and women that are really like, we're going to catch actual criminals, rapists, robbers, and unjustified killers, that's a noble profession. We also have to say a lot of law enforcement enforces unconstitutional laws, and that is not noble. That balance of being respecting that they do have a difficult job, while also saying your difficult job is made more difficult by the state because they are having you chase things that you should not be chasing. That is a balanced approach. That is not back the blue no matter what. That's stupid. And that also is not, F the police. That's stupid too. A balanced approach. Now, go back into Black America. Our nation did wrong things to a group of people. I got books all over right here. This book right here, Acres of Skin, right? This is a history of the human experiments at Holmesburg Prison. Holmesburg Prison is right up the street from Philadelphia, where I live. They targeted a group of Black people. We have to be honest about these things and call it for what it is. When we continue to act like it didn't happen, and then again, have the empathy, then recognize that group goes, this person understands my community struggle or parent struggle, that there are things that are still impacting the community now. The level of segregation that still exists in most major cities. In Chicago, you go from Black to white. You start getting right over on South Shore, it's going to get white. That's not the people that move there are just like, hey, I'm white. I'm only moving with the white people. That's not what they're saying. But there is something that was created that we can see the outcomes of now still today. That's the part that when you don't understand, a lot of guys that are just saying you can move anywhere in America that don't even know that these things exist. They don't even know what redlining is. So because they don't know what redlining is, they don't know the current outcomes and how that impacts in school choice or the lack thereof, the education in the community or whatever. Then we get into culture and all of that. But my point is we'll get past it when we stop pretending like it didn't exist. And the outcomes, now, here's the flip side to this too. What we also not going to do is pretend as if because these things exist and the impacts are still around, one, we're not going to pretend as if they are as damaging as they were when my grandmother, great-grandfather were alive, because it's not the same. Physically in real life, it's not the same. We're not going to a place where I'm the Black dude and I can't drink from that water fountain. There's some strides have been made, like let's just stop. And we're also not going to pretend that because the outcomes or there are certain residual effects of this, that we are forever victims. That's not the truth either, And so that
and brother, this is where you lose people, and this is so I'm going to talk from the pasty faced white guy's end, since I'm the pasty faced white guy in the conversation. Okay, correct. So when the conversation goes to the point of the city, the state, whatever government, the white folks did this to my ancestors, and so you owe me.
Okay.
And we want reparations.
So, okay.
You lose a lot of the white folks, because I look at it and go, wait a minute, I've never done any of this to anybody.
Yeah.
I acknowledge the fact that it was done, but I've worked hard all my life to just achieve the moderate success my wife and I have gotten.
Yeah. And
so I don't appreciate the whole white privilege statement.
Okay.
Because I think it's racist. And I don't appreciate the you owe me statement, because I don't owe you squat. And that's my response. And so when you come at me with that, then you lose me and the conversation goes away. How do we overcome that from the other side?
Because the reality is reparations, and that's another thing about being informed. Reparations is not white people individually owe me. These were corporations. Wells Fargo exists. Corporate charters keep very long and very detailed records. Okay. Before he died, Johnny Cochran did an amazing breakdown. It was called the Reparations Assessment Group, where Johnny Cochran said, hey, we are not going to chase our white brothers and sisters that weren't even alive. That's not even a thing. What we are going to do is go after the corporations that have profits and continue to profit off of their involvement in the slave trade. No different than our Jewish American brothers that have received reparations, Japanese American folks who have received reparations from the internment camps that America did to that group of people, our indigenous brothers and sisters that have gotten reparations for how they treated and murdered indigenous people. Listen, history's ugly and we acknowledge it, but why, when it specifically comes to Black people, we're not even allowed to have this conversation? Now, I think the important part is how it's presented. Extreme leftist white liberals generally are the people presenting this conversation and trying to hit every other white person with white guilt. The Black dude and his corporate friends that said, we're a corporation and we're going to track these corporation charters and show what they did, and we're going to go after them for their involvement in the slave trade. There is no statute of limitations on murder. And if you do something that's in alignment with murder and captivity, there is no statute of limitations. And that includes the profits from corporations. If white people understood that Black people ain't saying, you should give me the money out of your pocket right now because you're white, that's what extreme white liberals are saying, and they do not speak for the Black community. But because we're allowing this group of extreme lefties, who I question, do they even care about America, or especially Black folks? I don't think that they care about Black people's plight.
I don't think so either. In fact, I'm just going to say it. I'm going to say it out loud. The worst enemy of any minority is the rich white liberal, because they can experiment with them, and they do. Yep. And they can still sit in their ivory tower, and they're not affected by the experimentation that they do.
Bloomberg.
And so you're not going to get any disagreement out of me there, brother. I agree with you.
So when that happens, now working class, conservative, liberty-minded, or politically unaffiliated white folks are like, bruh, what? I didn't have anything to do with that. And they're right. But because how it's being packaged isn't presented, like, say, for example, we would never argue that our Jewish brothers and sisters who have gotten and received reparation, not only from Germany, but also from France, right? We would never say those guys, they weren't there in the gas chamber, so their lineage shouldn't get reparations. We would never say that. We would never say that. We would never say indigenous peoples, the first federal gun grab was the, massacre at Wounded Knee. We would never say the lineage of our indigenous brothers and sisters should not have, and I think they got a short end of the stick, some of the land that they have and fire, water, and all of these different things. We would never say, nah, man, they should have some tax exempt status because they lived here first. That's just the reality. To the victor go the spoils, no doubt. And this is our nation, and we all live here and love this America now. But we wouldn't say, nah, they don't deserve any of what they got. We wouldn't say that. Not only is it insensitive, it's like, well, you got a whole bunch of, if we're saying that for this group, we have to say it for every group. My point in saying that is, if you don't understand what the conversation of reparations is about, it's not a let's tax white people thing. It's what corporate entities benefited from this, and an economic structure was made. America, a big hand of America was a Black hand. Benjamin Banneker designed Washington, D.C. Donald Trump himself, I was in the White House when he said it at the White House. He said, African Americans had a large hand in building our nation. I know we all built it together, but you had a large hand in it. I'm quoting what he said. You're just now starting to get recognition for that. And of course, CNN didn't report that. But my point in saying this is, when the misinformation and the people that are talking out of turn, pretending as if they, represent Black interests or a Black struggle, or you don't even know what that Black struggle is because it's been packaged as if all Black people got it so great. Oh, well, we gave you guys welfare. You don't know that welfare was started to help white folks after the Depression. So this missing information and having people to translate that information from a balanced perspective and people receiving it from a balanced and empathetic way is how we move forward. If I explain this concept of reparations to white folks that heard it from extreme leftist white liberals, they would absolutely go, nah, your lineage, that slavery thing was messed up. If it's corporations that are getting taxed and it ain't my pocket because I wasn't there and those corporations still exist, you'd have a rough time finding white guys that would be like, hell no. They would be like, nah. And they would say, well, my elders were impacted a certain way too. What corporations impacted the potato famine with the Irish? And that's fair. That's fair to say, and they want to pick up that mantle and say, my people, this is, and let me show you exactly the outcome of that. Not you're white. And so because you're white, no accounting for, is he Italian? Is he Irish? Is he Portuguese? Whatever.
And this is where it goes wrong, okay? Because I've had people have these conversations with me and they don't realize that my grandmother, whom I loved dearly and knew all my life until she died, and who was born at the turn of the century in 1900, was sold to her first husband for $300 worth of groceries. Now, that's a form of slavery.
There's layers to this.
And so when you say it only happened to me because of the color of my skin, you lose everyone else.
I think it's, and
for example, if you say it only happened to me because I'm Jewish and it only happened to me at the Holocaust, it only happened to me because I'm a Native American and because it happened to my people, it only happened, and you're right. Mm-hmm. It happened to a lot of different ethnic groups, and I don't disagree with your point of view at all. I think the messaging, getting back to what you were saying before, the messaging absolutely sucks.
The messaging is coming from people that aren't qualified to. No one said they're the messengers, and we get caught up in this. That person doesn't speak for us because they're loud and they're liberals and they happen to be Democrats. And they have some Black folks following them. That doesn't mean that they speak for us. And on top of that, here's another part. We have to understand that chattel slavery in America, we live in America. We live in America. I will say this, Black Americans, by and large, were the major, and this ain't the victim Olympics, this is history. In America, chattel slavery was the worst kind of slavery, that the MAFA, the transatlantic slave trade and all of that. There were entire new torture devices created to torture people specifically because, and I've went to Virginia, I've read that when they were breaking down, how can we justify doing this to humans? We'll use their race. We'll say they're cursed. This happened. This isn't me just saying it because I'm a lefty. I'm not. I'm saying, just like we say, facts don't care about our feelings. Okay, well, in this space, you don't like the fact that America put Black people through some horrific stuff.
No, I agree with you. They did.
And
I agree with you.
When we say, our Irish folks came over here, give us your poor, your tired, your huddled masses. There was a different type of how you got here. That is a simple fact. And yeah. When we acknowledge that and then go, that doesn't give you the carte blanche to just forever be a victim. That balance being there, saying, yo, I understand your struggle. Chattel slavery and the transatlantic slave trade was the worst thing that any other type of group of Americans have existed in America. That does not mean that chattel slavery or any other type of slavery didn't exist anywhere else. But when we're isolating the conversation to America, the quicker I can say, yo, bro, currently right now, white dudes are like getting a big whooping of you guys are the problem. It's almost like y'all are getting treated like Black folks got treated. Like, and I'm not saying the physical component of it.
No, I know
I'm
that.
I'm saying the attack from.
We're catching the blame. We're catching the attacks, and I would say the vast majority of us haven't done anything.
So if I can recognize that current reality in America, white dudes is getting beat up PR wise. If I can recognize that, white dudes should be able to say, Black people had it a little bit rough in America. And then going, who is responsible for it? Because if we find out who's responsible for it, me as a white dude, I wasn't responsible for it. So let's find out who was responsible for it, because they got a raw deal out of that. And again, when we talk about some of these books, here are the outcomes that currently exist because of that. That is a nuanced person receiving the information. That's not just capitulating to leftist demands that you shine Black people's shoes. That's something stupid like that, right? That's not that extreme. And it's not the extreme of, well, it happened to everybody, because it didn't. It was different. And we're talking about even after it happened, even after so-called emancipation, entire systems set up with a different level of restriction on that Black person in America. And so having that honest, and like you said earlier, it was a very key statement. This exists beyond the gun conversation, the race conversation. This is the art of listening to learn and understand and find a solution, because we understood the empathy first. And then after we got to the empathy, then we discussed, this is the 3-part approach.
No, this is, and I think, brother, I think this is where we have to have, this is a tough conversation that people are afraid to have. I've said things to you that a lot of folks won't say because they're afraid to have this conversation. And if we're fearful, if we can't start off with, we're going to say what we think and then be open to the fact that could be wrong. Let's have this back and forth. If we can't do that, we never get past this. And one of the things that I see that really troubles me is there's a whole system. There's a governmental system. There's a media system. There's a whole system that does not want this conversation or conversations like this to happen. There's a whole system that's designed specifically in this country to divide.
Right.
It's not designed to bring unity. It's designed to split us up by races, ethnic groups, languages, countries of origin, histories, and all these other things. And unfortunately, it's being extremely effective. And even in our effort to try to bring people together in the Second Amendment, that's one part of it. The Bill of Rights is, although it was written by slave owners, let's be honest,
right?
It is now. It needs to be now. It needs to be for everybody, not just for one group of people. And we've got to figure out how to. The system is jacked up. We got to figure a way to dismantle that. And if we can't have this conversation, we're never going to do it.
I think we dismantle it by. So I never say I'm colorblind. I understand and appreciate that's what America is. It's supposed to be a melting pot, right? When I'm with my Muslim homies, can I correct that just with my point of view? And correct it is probably not the right word. I think America needs to be a tossed salad, not a melting pot. Okay.
Because you are never going to be like me. Exactly. And I'm never going to be like you.
Right.
You know, God in his, and again, I'm a Christian, God in his infinite wisdom is incredibly artistic. And so he makes people different sizes, shapes, colors. We all, every culture makes rice pretty much, but have you ever noticed we all make it differently?
Right.
We all put our own flavor to it. We all have our own culture, our own language, our own history. And those are all marvelous things. If we want to be a melting pot, that means we homogenize that into some homogenized whole. And if that's our expectation, then our expectation is not realistic and it's not even good. But if we can be a tossed salad, you know what I mean?
Love that.
I have to admit, I'm probably the lousy kind of rotting tomato there, but you get to be the lettuce, or you see what I'm saying?
It becomes each thing has its own unique taste and value that maintains throughout this entire meal. That tomato is going to taste like that tomato. That lettuce. Oh man, we got some parsley on here. We got some croutons. So yes, I'm forever using that now as my reference. That's a better analogy. And so,
I'm glad you got something good out of this. That's good.
And doing it as such, we just recognize like, yo, the tomatoes, man, they grow at this speed. Yo, this is what we got to do to make sure that the lettuce is okay. This is what we got. Yo, man, we're going to make sure that those onions are really cool. My point is, and then we also go, I'm okay with the differences. And I understand more about each one of those different things. That is what we do by recognizing and having empathy for each one of those groups. The Second Amendment does it where we have a baseline of whatever fruit or vegetable you are in this salad, you have a fundamental right to be that fruit or vegetable in this salad. And if someone says, we don't want that, we want to get rid, we want to merge out tomatoes, you have the right to say, I get a chance to be here too, and I can defend my vineyard, my tomato garden or whatever. My point in saying that is that's what the Second Amendment is supposed to do. When we lose that conversation, and I'm very, very, very critical of conservatives because I believe conservatives and libertarians and more independent thought They're more of the adults in the room. And I'm not saying that to be disrespectful to our Democratic brothers and sisters. But what I'm saying is that historically, the Democrats have been the party of like slavery, the party of the Ku Klux Klan, the party of like historically, gun control, Democrat. So as you evolve, you get out of wanting the government to use the state powers to control your destiny. You're going to get out of being a Democrat. You're going to evolve into different things. Because of that, us being the so-called adults in the room, and again, I'm not saying that as a disparaging comment, I'm saying a more evolved thought.
As long as you're not calling me old, that's the important thing. I am a libertarian, but
we have to make sure that we are finessing our messaging in a manner that meets the people that currently reside in leftist places. But a lot of these people, we're not talking about the extreme lefties. We're talking about people that's, well, my dad was raised Democrat, so I'm a Democrat. That person that's not arguing and yelling at you, purple hair, arguing. I'm not talking about that person. There's a bunch of people in the middle, even that are in so-called Democratic spots. They're just, well, this is what they said I am. When you inform that person thoroughly and your messaging is right, for the same reason that I'm not a Democrat anymore, is the same reason why Malcolm X evolved, is because the knowledge was right and the messaging was on point, as opposed to saying things like all cancers matter, all slaveries matter, as opposed to saying this unique scenario for our American brothers and sisters was horrific and we need to get to the bottom of it. Bottom of it does not mean I'm responsible for it. I'm showing an alliance with that being wrong. That does more for race relations than anything else. And the Second Amendment creates the space where it becomes, is this person safe and responsible? And if they're saying our fates are intertwined with this gun thing, that shows this person understands that in my community, I have the right to defend myself. In their community, whatever communities those are, they have the right to defend themselves. That again does more for those race relations. When you have conservatives that say things not to advance the cause, but to be edgy or to sell books or to get their clicks, views, and likes up because that generates money. They are not trying to expand conservative values or liberty values. They are trying to cater to their base and sell product to their niche market. You could have 1 million followers, all million that already agree with you. All of those 1 million followers may have not bought anything from you. So you, every so often, if you're just saying things to get, I got 100,000 people to buy stuff, I need the next 200,000 to buy stuff. You're just saying catch bait, clicky things to get the energy going. That is good for your sales. That is horrible for our republic. That is not going to merge more people together that are in the middle. Again, there's over 40 million undecided voters, damn near every year in America. The person that can get the people in the middle, more a little bit to their side, left, right, whatever, that person or group wins more consistently. I am in this for wins. I am not in this to dunk on the left. And we get caught in that so much. Goofballs like Brandon Tatum just says things. That does not advance the cause. It actually repulses the community that we need. That's why we keep getting our butt kicked, because the Democrats are great at the marketing. The brain that we have to think with needs to ask this question. Am I in this to get an overall win and potentially save our republic? Because America's not looking good right now. No. In home or internationally, we look horrible. Am I doing this to spread the cause of liberty, libertarian values, conservative values, whatever, independent thought? And if that's what I'm in it for, because the option is, or am I just here to sell product? If you're just here to sell product, you're out of the conversation for me. But because you can sell product and move forward and advance the cause. But if you're there for advancing the cause, the next question that you should ask yourself is, this thing, especially if you have a sizable platform, this thing that I'm about to say, do, tweet, post, whatever, how does this advance my cause? If it does not advance the cause, maybe you shouldn't do it or say it or tweet it or post it. Maybe you shouldn't. That doesn't mean that you don't have the right to do it, but we don't have time to be doing wasted moves on the chessboard. You just move that pawn for what reason? And that leftist, the other side of the chessboard, is going to go, They're going to take that move that you made, and they're going to go to those people in the middle in their demographic and say, see, this is what the conservatives or the libertarians or the independents, they're racist. Look at what they think of you. They don't care about your struggle or your elder struggle. They're just trying to diminish it. And that may not even be what your intent is. Look, they don't care. Look, all of these what they painted Kyle Rittenhouse as a white supremacist, and he literally ran away from people that were trying to shoot and maim him. And all of the people that he shot were white dudes, and they called him racist. They are crafty and skillful. So why would you give them any more ammunition? We have to think from that perspective. The thing that I don't generally talk about religion, and I don't talk about sex on any of my social media platforms. Why? Because it does not have anything to do with the advancement of the cause of conservative values or liberty. It just doesn't.
Well, and you know what? The reason why I do is because I think it's important for people. Okay, look, I'm a denigrated individual at the moment. I'm a white guy. I carry a gun every day. I'm a libertarian. Yeah. I believe people should have their rights, and we ought to have a lot less government, not to be out of everybody's face. Yeah, I'm a Christian. Let's see. I'm a member of Gun Owners of America, and all these other organizations. I'm universally despised. Okay, I think at some point, even Christians, Jews, pick a religion. Yeah, they get a bad rap because, again, there's this whole system meant to divide. Even, even in our Bible group, we talk about this a lot. That churches will say, "Well, don't go to that church down the street because they're fill in the blank." Yeah, and that's just division, and it's so stinking ingrained in our system. I'm so tired of seeing people essentially say, "Look, you do you, and I'll do me," as opposed to, "No, I get you. I'll spend the time to understand. I'll spend the time to get it. Yeah, knowing you're going to spend the time to get me, and that means, and we're not going to be the same. I don't care how hard I try. I'm never going to understand what it is to be a black man. I'm never going to understand what it is to grow up in the inner city. I'm not going to get that. Now, I grew up partially in a good home and partially in a broken home as white trailer trash. And you're never going to understand what it is to be white trailer trash, or what it is to be, and that's okay. Right. But if we can just respect each other's history and honor it, then we can build community, we can build friendship, and we can figure it out. One of the things, I keep going back to Rodney King, one of the greatest things he ever said is, why can't we all just get along? So we can't, because we're not honoring the differences. We're using them to divide. I think that when I say I don't talk about religion, I say I just try to avoid the things. I know where my wheelhouse is, right? Because because race, a conversation about race potentially can be divided, right? However, I'm just saying for my wheelhouse. Now, somebody else's vocation may say, hey, let me show how Judaism or Islam or Christianity, insert whatever, or Hinduism, how this has made me better as a person. And that has value for that struggle, for their spoke in this wheel, right? Because that ties into individual liberty. I'm just saying, for me in that space, when I'm saying something, even if I was to, because we're now talking about Judaism, Islamic, values or whatever, I try to do it in a manner where it's strategic. I do not want to give the people that have resigned themselves to not be about liberty and are actively pursuing removing liberties. I don't want to give them any ammo. So where my challenge is to people that are so-called on the right is, how does this statement help? Now, you might say, I discuss my religious beliefs because I want to show that in the face of people saying that all Christians are evil, right? I have to show my light and show that, no, I am a Christian and this is my value system and this is what I do to bring light to the world. That's value. That's strategic. That's a smart tactic. But you just saying, me saying religion is the thing that has divided people more than anything in the universe. Me saying that in the social media post, how does that bring people together? Well, you get back to that's a fact.
Right. And you say, I go, well, it's a fact and it's true. And if you don't like it, then but it becomes this person that has utilized Christianity to get off of drugs or stop alcoholism. It almost belittles their entire existence in their mind. It makes them go, how dare you? I was doing all kinds of things for my addiction. I use this Bible, this Quran, this Torah, this Bhagavad Gita, this Gilgamesh epics, this whatever. I use this thing as a person, as a human, and it's helped me get out of a very, very, very bad place. Me saying that, there's a billion people that feel that same way about their faith, whatever it is. There is no visual or sustainable benefit for me to do that. The better thing is to your point is to go, I love how there's so many different types of faiths that have different value systems, but there is a commonality in all of them of being a good person, exercising discipline, making good choices, being kind to your neighbor. That is a much more tactically sound, productively strategic statement to make. And if we want to actually win as conservatives, as libertarians, and really save this republic, I would challenge everyone to put all of your moves through that lens. Because you do the same thing. When I'm going to the gym, hey man, you missing the gym or eating all of that extra ice cream and cake, does that actually, do you have a goal here? And if you have a goal here, the choices that you make, is it in alignment with that goal? And again, a lot of these guys, their goal, and I harp on him a lot. He's our brother, but I still harp on him a lot because he makes a bunch of dumb decisions. When you're representing what conservative and liberty values are, and I've done it too before. I've not looked through that lens and made a move that I'm like, ugh, right? But now if I'm actually trying to win this war and save our republic, I can't every time the police do something or someone shot, I can't say, well, they should have just complied. I just said I'm not going to comply with HR 1808 if it gets through the Senate. Everybody knows I do not comply with unconstitutional mandates. So I'm not in compliance. It's a contradiction. And then I start to look like, again, Brandon looks all the time like, damn, bro. So the government is always right. The American people are not right. We're so loyal to our so-called team and narrative. We're more loyal to that than the freedom of the American people. And that's what this whole, I guess, conversation today was about, and challenging people, because I got to go because it's already 2.
I know you do. I was just going to remind you because you're running out of time.
Challenging folks, man, challenging folks to be better in that regard. And I say challenge us first because we're the more, no disrespect, historically, factually, we are the more evolved mind in this context. And we got to be the adults in the room.
Of, for, by.
Yes.
People need to read the Declaration of Independence. They need to read the Constitution and understand that the government is formed by the people.
Yeah.
It is of the people and it's for the people.
Right.
And it's got a purpose. And if they read that, they'll understand what the purpose is. And it also clearly says that anytime it doesn't meet that purpose, the people have the right to abolish it or change it. And so it's not the government that lords over us. It needs to be the other way around. Maj, thank you very much for coming on the show. I hope you will come back. And this has been a great conversation, and I want to have more of these conversations with you. I think it's healthy, and we need to do it. Will you come back again?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Let's set it up.
All right, man. You stay safe out there, okay? Or not. Like my wife always says when people leave, drive fast, take chances, and take your road rage with you, right?
I appreciate you, brother. I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Take care.
All right. Peace.
Thank you very much for hanging in with us through the entire interview. What a great conversation. I'm really grateful that he came on. This is some tough stuff, but we got to get it out there and we got to talk about it. Otherwise, we're starting to divide ourselves way too much. I don't think division is good no matter what we do. Thank you again, though, for watching all the way through and for all of your support. If you would like to check out Maj's website, there is a link in the description. So please do that and help him out in any way that he needs it, because he's doing some great work out there in Philadelphia. And I think, frankly, all over the place. And then if you'd also like to support the channel, you're welcome to do that at GunGuyTV Crew. Again, the link is in the description, or you can find us also on Locals and Patreon. Have a wonderful week. Thank you very much for watching. And wherever you go, whatever you do, stay safe.